Have you ever used an adaptive card? Do you know how to use them in your development projects? Okay, you might think I'm talking about a comedy improv troupe, but no. I'm talking about these brilliant little pieces of interactive content that keep showing up in products from Microsoft and some third-party apps as well. Adaptive cards are a solution to a very old problem of integrating applications at the UI level. One approach is to code one application to display data from another, but that's not flexible and it has the effect of version locking the two applications. Another common approach is embedding one app's user interface inside the other. These days that's often done using an iframe or an embedded browser window. But this is very heavyweight. Imagine if you had a dozen of these in a conversation thread, for example. It would slow to a crawl. Adaptive cards provide a nice compromise between hard-coding knowledge of one app inside another versus embedding the entire app inside another. They're lightweight JSON structures that can be displayed in a Copilot or Teams conversation, an Outlook message, or any web page. The best place to start is on the Adaptive Cards website at https://adaptivecards.io. I often like to start with the Samples tab and select a sample that's similar to what I'm looking for. Notice that some of the samples are more visual, some have little forms, and you can set them up to reveal more details based on the user interaction. Now, as you can see, it's just a JSON object. You can create this JSON however you want to, but I find it helpful to use the templating feature, which provides simple data binding, as you can see here. There are also actions. In this case, the show card action is what displays the details for each food selection. I'll have more to say about actions in a few minutes. Meanwhile, let me show you some code. Okay, so you've probably seen this app before. I'm in Copilot in Teams, and I'm going to type, please find chai in Northwind inventory. And the result comes back with an adaptive card. So now I can click Take Action. That's the show card action that I'm using there. And then let's say I want to order 33 more. I can click this and it's going to replace the little form with a new card that says that the restocking was complete. Now let's take a look at the code. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the edit card that you saw me edit there. And it's a card, and you can see that I've got data binding with a product name and inventory status and all these other fields. And eventually I come down to this action set, and I have one action in the action set, which is show card. So that's what opens that smaller card down below and lets me take action on the product. And the first thing I see is the input field where I can enter a quantity. And then I've got some buttons here, action.execute actions for updating, restocking, and canceling the restock. Notice that in addition to the data in the input field, it's also going to submit the product ID back so that when my code runs in response to someone clicking the button, I know which product ID that we're updating. So if I go into this card handler, there's a function getEditCard. I'm not going to get into the whole solution here, but just when it goes to get the card, you can see that it's going to acquire the template. So it's just going to read that JSON in. And then it's going to take the product information and bind it, expand it, as they say, with that template data. And then it returns the card, and that's that easy. When somebody updates the card and submits a change, one of these update functions gets called, and this is for the stock level update. And you can see that what it's doing is it's going to get back in request.action.data, it's going to get back the data from that card. And now I can take txt stock, which was the input field, and product ID, which is what I passed in the data object, and I can get that back, get the products, and update the product accordingly. And then I can expand it into a new card that confirms success. An important design principle for adaptive cards is that the card author owns the content, but the host app owns the look and feel. As a result, adaptive cards should always look like they fit into the hosting application. So as a card author, you don't get to choose fonts, colors, or other CSS-like aspects. Let me show you what I mean. Here's the Adaptive Card Designer, which is another tab on the adaptivecards.io website. You can start from any of the samples that you want or from a blank canvas. In this case, I'll just use the default sample to show you what it really means to be adaptive. For example, this is what the card looks like in the Bot Framework web chat. But if it was in Outlook, it would look like this. If it was in Teams, it would look like this unless we had the dark mode turned on. So this not only gives you a design canvas for building your adaptive cards and adaptive card templates, but it also lets you visualize what they'll look like in different situations. The last thing I want to touch on is adaptive card actions. Technically, the actions are up to the hosting application. A couple of actions are available anywhere, and one of them is Open URL. This displays a web page in whatever way the hosting application wants to do that. And Show Card displays or hides a child card. That's how those restaurant options that I showed earlier work. Depending on the hosting application, you can use action.submit or action.execute to gather input fields and send them back to your code. For compatibility across Teams and Outlook, you can use action.execute and the so-called universal action model. You can even refresh the cards to keep everyone up to date. I'll put a link to the details in the show notes. Finally, you should know that all of this is open source. You can not only create cards in your application, but you can host them as well. Here's an example of an adaptive card hosted in a web page. It's a really simple one, and I can just enter my name, and it will post back and give me a new card. This is really simple. You can just check out the code. There's not that much on your own. I'll put the link to this little plunker in the show notes. There are SDKs for JavaScript on web pages, .NET, HTML, WPF, UWP, Xamarin, and more, and also for Android and iOS applications. React Native is supported as well. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes to the documentation. So that's it for now. I hope this helps you understand what adaptive cards are all about and how to use them in your solutions. If you like this video, please give it a like, and it would be great if you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our videos. Thanks, and I'll see you next time for more Microsoft 365 Developer Essentials.